The patterns that we notice in our lives tend to show up in different areas. No matter what you do, you are changing lives in your own way too. Let's really get clear. How is my current role impacting the world? And make sure that you see that link, even if it's not direct, because I think that will give you more purpose.
If you're just going on autopilot and not consciously taking the next steps to get you one step closer to that dream and that goal, unfortunately, these things don't just happen on their own.
Do you ever struggle with anything? Do you ever have crunchy days? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. The difference is the tools that we learn and the tools that we develop that help us navigate those storms in the best and smoothest way possible. That's your brain, like a Labrador. So what is your Labrador focused on? Where's the stick that you're giving it to go solve that problem? Because when we do that, when we have a problem to solve, our brain, that's when we become the most powerful. But if we are idle and this Labrador is sitting around bored with nothing to focus on, guess what it does?
Dr. Ginny Baro, thank you so much for being on Becoming You. It's amazing to have you back on the show again.
Thank you so much, Katrina. It's always a pleasure to be with you and to connect, always.
Yeah. And I really appreciate your presence in my life. We're going on 6 years now, probably. And I had you on the show 5 years ago during lockdown, during the, COVID-19 global pandemic. So I'm sure you have a lot to fill us in on everything you've been up to ever since then. But I just wanted to touch base with you on some of the wisdom you have been sharing at that time and maybe how it applies, even now as we think back to our own lives and how they've changed over time. But something that you had been sharing was taking stock and inventory of the patterns in our life, and how we show up in other areas of life is how we'll also show up when things get crunchy, as you like to say, or if they're uncomfortable and challenging. So I'd love for you to kind of maybe reflect on that and see what comes to mind for you now, 5 years later, after sharing that with us.
Well, it all remains true. The patterns that we notice in our lives tend to show up in different areas. And since the pandemic, which, was the talk of the time, because it was such an interesting time for everyone, challenging for many of us, painful personally for many people. And for those who didn't lose people during the pandemic, just being in isolation, that was really tough. Our businesses had to transform. We had businesses that said you could never work remotely, and all of a sudden we were working remotely. And now we live in a hybrid world. So this is a perfect opportunity for us to reconnect, Katrina, and level set, because I believe currently we are undergoing another wave of transformation that is more related to AI and machine learning, and how it's impacting our lives, our every day in our roles, in our functions, and also transforming our workplace. So one of the things that I'm 100% sure of, which I'm sure you will agree, is that our life, career-wise and otherwise, is always happening in chapters. And so what chapter are you in right now, Katrina?
Oh my gosh. I haven't titled this current chapter, but yeah, I definitely can relate to the visual of being in a new chapter and joining your Fearless Mastermind challenge and then your mastermind cohort. I've really had the opportunity to delve into where does my growth mindset show up and where am I possibly lacking in a growth mindset, where I may be giving into fear or a fixed way of thinking about things where I'm not open to change. So my personal life, I would say, has really catapulted in a very positive, healthy direction since gaining those tools and resources from you. But this is going on already 5 years of implementing that and making a conscious effort to not have my life only be about work all the time. Work is really important, but it can't be everything.
There's more to life, right?
Mhm.
Work is a means to an end, and for many of us it's a mission for depending on what we do. And that was one of the questions that I actually raised during our cohort today. We met today, and it was about, I was challenging everyone to think about, how is my work right now, my corporate job or your business, if you have a business, how is that changing the world? Because somebody had said, one of the members said, Dr. Ginny, you're able to change lives, and you can see it because I'm hearing from you, right? I'm hearing from Katrina. I'm hearing from all the other members who've been part of our programs. And I guarantee you that no matter what you do, you are changing lives in your own way too. You may not see it directly because you're not speaking B2C, business to consumer. But if you're in a company, and I know many of my clients are in financial services, so somehow they are helping families, businesses be able to provide security, safety, legacy, help others who are also working in those companies bring home the bacon, as we say. And I also work with a lot of STEM companies in science, in pharmaceuticals. And so every one of those companies is, in many cases, like three of our members in our cohort are in pharmaceutical companies, where the companies are making medications. So yes, you may be in charge of finding the sites for those medications to be tested, and that is your contribution to the world in bringing that medicine to the world. So let's really get clear, everybody who's listening, how is my current role impacting the world, and make sure that you see that link, even if it's not direct, because I think that will give you more purpose.
Yeah, that's so beautiful and so actionable too. I know for many people who do want to change the world, you have to be really connected to that mission in order to make it a reality. If you're just going on autopilot and not consciously taking the next steps to get you one step closer to that dream and that goal, unfortunately, these things don't just happen on their own. They're not going to happen automatically. So you do have to be really plugged into that. Something that comes to mind, even as you're describing this, Ginny, are all the books that you've already written and the book that you have coming out. And I know you just shared with me some very exciting special news, which I will let you share with the audience. But where do you get all of these ideas from, or what's the process like for you? And what makes you continue moving forward in that direction? I won't say nothing's ever enough, but you do find a lot of intrinsic motivation, I think, with continuing education, with sharing your knowledge through books and your future surprise, which again, I'll let you share.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So it all ties back to what we were just talking about, which is when I think about what gives my work purpose is knowing that what I have learned in the past 30 plus years in industry, I can pass on to Katrina and to all the women and all the leaders who are part of our private community. And so that's how I get my idea. So the first book, Fearless Women at Work, was all about how can I share with them what I did for the 26 years in corporate to advance, to grow, to become a better version of who I am. So I share that in my cares framework. And then during the pandemic, I had the idea, like you, of just interviewing people, connecting with people. And I began to have these interviews where I was asking similar questions. And over time, I noticed I was accumulating quite a significant body of field study that I was doing
Yeah.
unbeknownst to me. And then all of a sudden I got healing leadership, meaning it was all about how do people connect to themselves, connect to others, and continue to grow. And those were the sections of the book. And then I took the 41 interviews that I collected and I share leaders spotlights in that book. You are one of them,
I
right? So
know.
it
Yeah,
was
it
so
was amazing.
wonderful. It was so wonderful. And
Mhm.
now that it's been, wow, since 21, 25, 4 years since then, I now I'm asking myself, well, what is the next message that I want to share with the world? What haven't I said? I have Fearless Women that talks about the 5 strategies to thrive in your career and life. I talked about healing leadership, which is more of a senior skills for leaders. Now I'm thinking, what have I noticed? And this goes back to sharing my surprise.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I've noticed since 2020, when I began this mastermind, is that as I put together curriculum and I put together training that I believe is going to help the women grow and advance and the leaders get to their next level, you also have experienced how I do these free classes, these free master classes. And you can find them on my website. We can share that later. But basically, it's an introduction. Just welcome everybody, and let's see where you are, and let's put a pin on the map, and let's see where you want to go, and see if there's a gap. And if there's a gap, let's talk about it. And so when I've been inviting people to come into this conversation, when it comes to the part of people actually investing in themselves, I've noticed some patterns, back to patterns. And I thought those patterns were significant enough that I want to talk about them in a new book. And so, in addition to finding the patterns, I then want to bring in what can we do about this? Because if we are trying to unlock our potential, we can't do that unless we are willing to bet and invest in ourselves. And so that's the kind of the crux of it. And then I give you 3 major strategies to use to unlock your potential. So that's the new book. And simultaneously,
Yeah.
simultaneously, my I have a coach. I have 4 coaches right now, by the way.
Oh, wow.
One of my coaches, 2 business coaches, a TED Talk coach, and a relationship coach. So I got 4 coaches. One of my coaches is a TED Talk coach, and she just texted me about 3 days ago to tell me that my TED Talk got picked. So in October of this year, I will be giving my TED Talk in the University of Northern Iowa. So I am super excited about it. And it has to do with the book as well, Katrina.
That's awesome. That's
So it's a
so
similar topic. Yeah,
Yeah, that's so important, especially if you think about publishing a book and wanting to go on a book tour. I feel like the timing couldn't be better, subsequently like that. Um,
exactly.
yeah, but even if you
Exactly.
didn't just come out with a book, getting to share your thoughts on a TEDx stage is amazing. It's such an
Yeah,
accomplishment to even be selected. So, congratulations. That's such a huge feat. I'm really
thank
happy
you.
for
I
you.
cannot I cannot wait. And we do this. We're not only doing it on the stage. Obviously, we're doing it every single day. But it's just exciting to hit that milestone and be like, "Yeah, I'm doing my TED Talk."
Right, right. Going from best-selling author to TEDx speaker, it's just amazing. And you've really earned it. So, when you think about the patterns in your own life, have you ever had to adjust anything, or does all of this just come naturally to you?
Oh, oh, come on now.
I know.
Of course, of course.
Okay,
We're
okay. I will
constantly.
caveat that you make everything seem effortless. So my question is not facetious by any means, because it does come across like this is effortless for you. But I would love to hear, a little bit about how you've been able to maybe overcome some crunchy times.
So, Katrina, this is such a great question because I'm sure everyone listening may be looking at other people and saying the same thing, right? Like, oh, you make it look so effortless. Do you ever have a bad day, right? Do you ever struggle with anything? Do you ever have crunchy days? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. The difference is the tools that we learn and the tools that we develop that help us navigate those storms in the best and smoothest way possible. So it's almost like imagine being in the ocean and it's a storm and the waters are very choppy and you find yourself in a dingy boat, right? You're going to be all over the place doing
Oh,
this, right? Like
yeah.
completely out of control. Or if you find yourself in a nice, sturdy, big yacht, it's a very different experience. So the yacht or the dinghy are not created by the money you have. They are created by the emotional and mental resilience that you develop over the years. How? By investing in yourself. So when you have spent time investing in emotional intelligence tools that increase your self-awareness, your self-management, your social awareness, how to build relationships, and you work on your mindset. And we worked a lot on growth mindset, that things are happening to us, not to us, for us, and that whatever happens is there to teach us a lesson, and that my value is not tied to my performance, so I can take risks. And if it doesn't go the way that I planned, that doesn't mean my value goes down. It means I now have a new data point and I can pivot from there. So when you have been working on these tools and you apply them, and they're not intellectual, because I always say people think it's an intellectual exercise. It is not intellectual. This is a life practice. And so every day we have a gratitude practice. You remember this, an acknowledgement practice. What's working? What's going really well? Because our minds tend to always go to what's broken and what's not working, and the sky is falling.
Right. Always.
And if we really look back, it's not what's happening that takes us down, it's the meaning we give it and then the emotions we feel because of that meaning. So if we can become more self-aware about what meaning am I giving to situations and what feelings am I feeling because of the meaning that I'm giving it, you have the power, you have the remote control. And that's the difference. So when we do the work, we have more self-awareness, we have more tools in our tool belt that we can use to navigate those situations, whether they're personal situations that are challenging, either with yourself, with a loved one, or situations at work. So yes, I have days when I'm questioning my existence, I'm questioning my work, I'm questioning my approach, I'm questioning my strategy. And I always come down to what's working and then what doesn't feel aligned. And then I go there and I go deeper into what doesn't feel aligned and look for that alignment. And I use my coaches to help me with that because
Right. Right.
you can't give yourself a good haircut, right?
No, I know exactly. And you mentioned investing in yourself, and you shared that you do have four coaches. So obviously, that's a very conscious choice that you're making. And you're a business coach yourself, so you already see the value in that. But that's a huge investment just to help you stay on track too. And when you're sharing about self worth and the value that you have, and not letting that fluctuate, or dissipate depending on what's happening outside of you. It reminds me of this book called Worthy that I'm reading right now. A friend of mine gifted it to me. And in the book, it's differentiating between our self confidence and our self worth and how they are not the same. And you can be self confident based on all of the accolades and achievements and accomplishments that you've had, but your self worth and the way that you see yourself and value yourself could be really in the dumps. But on the other hand, you could have a very high sense of self worth and maybe not have as many accomplishments. And that may actually be a healthier way of being in this world. So, where do you kind of channel your energy to build yourself up and feel empowered intrinsically and not just extrinsically?
The book that you mentioned, is that the one by Jamie Kern Lima?
Yes, that's the one.
Worthy?
Mhm.
Yes. I listen to her podcast.
Oh,
Where I
amazing.
get where I get my self-worth is in and I think I might have shared this with you at another point, but it's always I'm somebody who focuses on being present. Like I'm fully present. I'm here with you, here now, here now, here now. Because the only real thing is today, now, this moment. And so when I was always focused on either the past or the future, I felt like I was robbing myself of the present. So I learned over the last 25 years that the now is the gold, the now is the diamond, the now is everything. That doesn't mean that you don't prepare for the future and that you don't reflect on the past to learn from it. But my self worth comes from that self acknowledgement practice that I mentioned, from understanding who I am, stripped from anything I own. I'm so lucky and fortunate and grateful that I've been able to build a physical world that is thankfully keeps me comfortable, keeps me without having to feel that struggle that I have to, because I did it, right? I've been working so hard my whole life that I built a beautiful external life. So that's almost like taken care of. And so if I were to strip myself of everything that I have and I'm only left with me, how do I feel about myself? And the answer is I feel like a mine of black diamonds. How come? Because if you strip everything that I have and you leave me just with me, I can honestly say to you, Katrina, and to everybody who's that I feel that since I was born in that little country, in the small village near Haiti, in Dominican Republic, and I was a little girl growing up in Dominican Republic till 14, that those years I was with my family, I was great with my friends, I showed up to school, I did my school work, I always felt like I was doing the best that I could with the resources I had. And then when I came to the US and I had all these opportunities, I was like, oh, look at the highway in front of me. I can do whatever I want. And I had my father and my mother who supported me. Then I had teachers and I had TAs in college. And then I went and had my professors. I felt that I've always had a mission. And as a little girl coming up from a broken family, my mission was to break the cycle of poverty. When I came to the US, it was to learn English, to go to college, to get a job, to become a professional woman. And now, always, every chapter, I've always had a mission. And that mission is what gives me my fuel. Like my mission now is to leave executive bound running when I retire, right? Retire so
Quotes,
that
yeah.
it can continue, right? I'm never retiring, most likely. But if we call it retirement from corporate America, retirement from work, is that I want to leave executive bound behind so that it can continue the work that I began. And that could be part of my legacy. And so as humans, this and but I highly recommend Mel Robbins as well. Mel Robbins has a great podcast, but she was talking about recently that the brain, the mind is such a huge machine. It's like a Labrador.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you take a stick and you throw it to a lab, it's going to run after that stick and grab it and bring it back. You throw it again and it goes, grabs the stick and it comes back. That's your brain, like a Labrador. So what is your Labrador focused on? Where's the stick that you're giving it to go solve that problem? Because when we do that, when we have a problem to solve, our brain, that's when we become the most powerful. But if we are idle and this Labrador is sitting around bored with nothing to focus on, guess what it does?
What? Nothing.
It, it turns on you.
Oh,
It
interesting.
turns on
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
It begins to look for faults and it begins to look for things to fix in you because it has no
Yeah.
stick.
Right. Okay.
So let's give our brains the stick, which is a real constructive problem to solve, and then you will see your life transformed.
Amazing. Yeah, we have to focus on what stick are we feeding ourselves and where are we throwing it to our dog brain. But I love that. I think that that's super helpful. And I never heard that before. So I'll have to give Mel's podcast a listen. But that's so interesting
Absolutely.
and a lot to think about too, because, where am I focusing my energy and what nourishment am I giving my brain to focus on? That can go down many different rabbit holes depending on the day, I think, but always good to be mindful of, so we don't become complacent, and we don't turn in on ourselves. I mean, it's great to have self reflection and self awareness, but if it's abusive or toxic, that's really not a good use of the energy that we have within ourselves. And I know our brains use 20% or something of our energy every day, especially women. I think our brains even use even more. So you have to take care of it, and keep it healthy. And otherwise, yeah, it'll turn on you. And we don't want that.
It will turn on you. And that's why, Katrina, it's so important to do what we do in the mastermind, which is, by the way, I'm rebranding it to Elevate Her.
Oh,
Executive Bound,
I love
Elevate
it.
Her.
Awesome.
So do you remember toward the end of our program, we talk about what is your compelling vision?
Yes.
That's exactly what that is. That's your stick.
Right. Right.
What is your forget the next 5, 10 years. Just focus on the next 12 months. The next 12 months, where are you going to focus your brain? And so that's your compelling vision, whether it's to get promoted, whether it is to build your team, whether it's to gain better communication skills, to improve your executive presence, whether it's to innovate for your company or
Right.
your business.
Yeah.
What is that compelling vision? And once you get clear on that vision, then that's the strategy is almost like that's trivial because then you can talk to a lot of people, right, who can help you with the how. I can help you with the how, but let's get clear on the what. What am I going to focus on?
Right.
Yeah.
And the time's going to pass anyway, so we may as well be intentional and focused about it. Speaking of time passing, we are nearly at time. Do you have any final thoughts, Jenny, while you're with us, just to close us out?
Yeah, I would love to leave you, Katrina, and leave everybody who's listening with this question about the chapter of your life. What chapter of your life are you in? And what is your compelling vision for this chapter? I can share personally for me, my son is 17. He'll be graduating high school in only a few months.
I can't
It's
believe
already,
it. Yeah.
I can't believe it. So he'll be graduating around August of this year. And then he's going to go off to college, wherever that is. So I'm starting a brand new chapter of my life. And what is that going to look like? And what do I want it to look like? That's where we live in the present, but we can think about the future and begin to set our intention for how we want to show up, what we would like to accomplish, what kind of relationships do we want to continue cultivating while we're doing that and nurturing while we're doing that. And then ultimately, who are we being? And if we were able to answer those questions for ourselves, that alone will give us so much clarity. That will help you create your own stick, and that will help you ensure that what matters most to you, which for most people is their relationship in their lives, that whatever you decide to do, whether it's advancing, growing, getting promoted, that you don't neglect your self care, that you don't neglect your relationships and your loved ones, and that you look at your life holistically, not only at a sliver of the career, but the entire pie, which has so many beautiful dimensions. So that's what I would love to leave everybody with.
Beautiful, Jenny. Thank you so much. I can't wait to check in with you again in 5 years and see where we are. But to your point, let's not wait that long and focus on the next 12 months instead. I love
Let's
it. Thank
do it.
you. Yes, thank you so much
So much
for joining me on my podcast again and sharing a bit about becoming you. Really appreciate you being here with us
pleasure.
today.
My pleasure, everyone. See you soon.
You are my most important listener, and I can't thank you enough for spending your time with me. If this content resonates with you, then hit subscribe. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube by following @ConnectorQueen. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you again on the next episode of Becoming You.